Welcome to Money on Tap. Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters, where we bring out the professionals' experience and some fun in what we call three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. That's what we do on this show. We look at all sides of the issues, and we bring a fully independent planning perspective to the table. Welcome back. You are listening to Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters. We're happy to have you with us here today. My name is Seth Krussman.
And I'm Ben Brayshaw.
And we're going to welcome Eric Morton. How are you today, Eric?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, guys.
We're glad you're here. And listeners, we are glad you're here with us. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. You can also find us at Facebook /3D Investing. And my favorite, BFG_LLC. That's my Twitter handle. My name's Seth Krussman, and you can always join in the conversation there. Listen to some of our past shows. We have been bringing to you kind of a two-part series called iRobo, and we're going to take a break from that today, and we're going to jump into teaching and using money as a tool to help teach the next generation how to be savvy investors or savers, or how to manage money. It's a skill set that we think a lot of people have missed an opportunity. A generation maybe has missed an opportunity to understand more about personal finance. And anyways, that's what we're here to do, is to help out with that personal finance in your world. And we're going to get into that topic and that subject. But before we do, we're going to talk a little bit about money in the news.
Well, today we have a couple of really interesting articles that I think touch on a bunch of us across all of our listenership in one way or another, or has in one point in time in their life. The first article we have is a little bit of a discussion around the federal minimum wage, and kind of what's going on with that is one thing that has happened is the minimum wage has not been raised in over a decade, which is astronomically, that's the longest time period that's ever happened with a minimum wage. And
I have a hard time believing that a decade was 2009, first of all.
I know, that is hard.
Yeah, I echo that sentiment.
Holy cow. Where did it go?
I know. And it's been interesting because when you read this article and you're going through this is a Wall Street Journal article by Eric Morath. There's 29 states that have moved their minimum wage higher than the $7.25 that it is federally. And it's something that, states in general are kind of adjusting on their own. And a lot of that has to do with the cost of living. I mean, I think some people are saying, hey, listen, it just costs way too much and we're not taking care of the local economy scenario here. And you kind of need to adjust the minimum wage. One reason the minimum wage exists is ultimately to control poverty levels in certain areas. Because if you don't have minimum wage, what ends up happening is you end up having segments of a city or an area that are impoverished, and that ends up becoming more like very unsafe, uncontrolled places to live. And then now you have polarized living environments in a city. So by bringing the minimum wage up, we're able to manage just basically the culture of a community. It's important because the polarization of that, separate from the economic effects, can have a lot of different living type effects. It's an interesting conversation. There's a lot of people in the political realm that really have no interest, according to the article, of even touching this, whether you're on one side of the table or another, Democrat or Republican, because it's kind of a hot topic, and people don't know how to address it.
This opened my eyes a bit because I didn't realize 7.25 was the federal minimum wage. Living in Washington State, we're getting close to 15 an hour. I think $13.50 by the end of the year, and Seattle's even higher. Putting that into perspective, I'm thinking about one of my first jobs I ever had in Vermont. My minimum wage $4.25.
That was a decade ago.
No, yes, thank you, Seth. I appreciate that. There's a reason why we get along. Very complimentary. But yeah, that was 1993. I mean, like what? It's only gone up $3 for the federal minimum. So I guess the point is the states are kind of taking control of that, but not all of them, which is surprising.
Well, only 50%, roughly.
Yeah,
just over 50% of them.
50%, but they're not all raising it to $13 or $15. I mean, they're just touching this thing with $8 and $9 at some levels.
Yeah.
So the percentage of Americans is just 0.28% of the 156 million civilian workers that earned the federal minimum last year, according to the Labor Department. Most of those employees were younger than 25 years old. So fairly small numbers in terms of that segment of the working population. But it's still shocking to me that there's places where 25 years or old or not are earning 7.25. Even when we were in college in Virginia, which was a fairly low wage state, I don't think anybody was making less than $8 an hour.
Yeah, I don't really remember. Yeah, I don't remember that stuff.
That was over a decade ago.
Yeah, that was definitely over a decade
Barely,
ago.
just a touch.
And it shows, Seth. It shows. But I wonder if looking at minimum wage is handled differently based on this article. Like looking at the number of Americans that are under 25 collecting a minimum wage being such a large percentage of the people in minimum wage. Maybe minimum wage is broken down by age brackets. Maybe minimum wage for somebody who's under 25 is one level of minimum wage, where somebody over 25 would be assumed to have a different criteria or ability, and basically just trying to provide for, just for families and so forth. You're over 25, 30 years old. I mean, you have a family that you're trying to care for and take care of. Those are things that you want to maybe address, because
but isn't that ageism?
It probably is, but you know what? I mean, I think about my 15, 16-year-old kids and my 18-year-old daughter and, and my 12-year-old son and them wanting to get a job and thinking, hey, listen, and I think this plays into our next conversation of the main topic, but I want them to start working, but someone might say, I don't want to hire them for $15 an hour. Like, I would rather...
That's why you have Walmart, who's at $11 an hour across their...
No, fair.
platform.
Yeah, fair enough. But what I'm saying is that even if we start setting minimum wage to a standard that a 35-year-old or somebody who is an accomplished person caring for a family, then maybe we end up washing out the younger age.
That's a good point. And Seth, were you saying that Walmart has $11 across the board? Doesn't matter where it is.
Yeah, that's what the article stated here, was that their minimum is $11 an hour.
If we can't have ageism, then how can we have like geographicalism or whatever that new word is I'm creating this week? So
well, it's kind of contrary to what you were saying in the beginning, though.
But isn't that what's happening in Oregon and Washington?
Creating that minimum wage brings money into areas that have been impoverished. And it raises the level of living for those people that have been in socioeconomic demographic there that has been low.
But if Washington and Oregon are already doing the job, right, and they're already raising it according to their living standards, which they should be doing, and same with California, if another town, like if you're in Kansas or Tennessee or Mississippi or some of these places where it doesn't cost as much to live, but all of a sudden you raise this standard, now companies who make less because they have people spending less, they're going to instantly have inflation. So I think, it again, right, we get paid based on capitalism. The better you do your job, the better things work. But I think we need to also prevent, abuse, right? That's the concept of everyone saying there should be a minimum wage. But we also need the states to tailor their particular demographic as well. But I think we've got to be careful, because I'm thinking about my kids saying, if the majority or good chunk of these people that are getting paid this are under 25, I want my son, if someone said I can train somebody and hire them for $8, $10 an hour or something like that, and they can actually have a first-time job, and I can get two people, so maybe I actually get the equal of one more senior person who knows a little bit more about the workforce, then maybe that's the break even. I'm just throwing it out there. No, I'm not.
I think either way, before our politicians give themselves a pay raise, I'd like them to see.
I want to vote in a pay decline. I think we should be able to vote to pay them less.
I bet you they'll pass that.
Yeah,
they will definitely pass that.
I think they should make whatever the average is for their the population that they represent. They should take that statistic, and that's what they get paid. If they want to get paid more, they help the people in their that they represent get paid more.
Yeah.
So if the state's profitable or the area is profitable, they can get an end of the year bonus. Is that what you're saying, Seth?
Some incentive there.
Incentives, I like that.
I think that's one of the biggest misnomers our forefathers did was give Congress the ability to vote in their own pay raise without some sort of approval or something along with the rest of the.
Yeah, I can't see the Supreme Court stepping in on this one, but somebody needs to bring it up, maybe.
Yeah. All right. Well,
hey, I vote for you. So there's an offer that may have come in through the mail to you recently. It probably looked like a $30,000 loan. Go ahead and apply here. $60,000 loan to consolidate your debt. But truth be told, this is more likely than not a scam in a way, right? Again, Wall Street Journal featured by Jean Eaglesham and Anna Maria Androitis. I got those names. Nailed it. There's consumer lending companies out there that are, offering a debt reduction, consolidation type of a loan. And the whole thing is there is never, ever going to be a loan or not real truly offer for a loan. They sell a service like a consumer debt reduction. And ultimately, this can really harm you and cost you taxes in the end and put people in a far worse situation.
I think everybody, for the most part, a good chunk of people who are probably listening today have had some exposure to these mailings. And I mean, I think everyone has probably received one of these things. I think they're mailing out 320 million, and my kids are getting one as well. So the thing that people mostly know is that, if I don't pay my creditors, something's going to happen to my credit score. I think the complaint on side of that is, wouldn't you know that if you're not paying your bills, like that's going to affect your credit score? And then on top of it, I think all these lawsuits that are happening, which are completely relevant, I mean, they're doing the minimum number of loans to just meet the criteria that they're not making false claims. Because if they did no loans at all, then all of a sudden they would never have been loaning money. So they are completing some loans, which is interesting. But these people are trained to literally deceive you. And there's all these former employees have come out like how they're supposed to, say, hey, listen, I'm going to work just for you today. Like I get your situation. I've been there, and they're trained to do all of these different pieces. And then they say, but I got to let you know that you didn't qualify for the loan, but I think you kind of knew that with what's going on. But I've either talked to my manager or whatever, and we're going to get you into this special program where we're going to help you relieve you of some of this debt. I mean, they're literally made to think that you are significantly special when the entire deceit is that they only want to get you to this restructuring efforts in which there is no guarantee. And as you pointed out, Seth, that anything that is waived will be taxable most likely to you as well. So on top of paying them fees, 25%.
How are you going to cover that one?
Yeah. I mean, you're actually probably at about the same number or pretty close to it. And some claim that, hey, listen, for every dollar we're paid, we save you $2.64 is what's in the article. But these things are scary.
And I think the draw is they're in such desperate times that anything, if someone says, oh, I can miss a couple months, doesn't matter what the result is. They're thinking, oh my goodness, this person says I should do this. They're the financial experts telling me to miss payments, and then when I start again, it's going to be $200 less a month. They're thinking about their cash flow immediately. Certainly not tax penalties down the road. I hadn't even heard about that. That's a scary thing.
Freedom Debt Relief in July, one of these companies, agreed to pay $25 million to settle civil lawsuits. A lawsuit filed by the Federal Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. That was a mouthful. That claimed it charged consumers without settling their debts as promised and misled them about fees. So that's scam to me.
Yeah.
I don't know what the loophole is there, and I probably should pull back on that language a little bit, but that's really what it looks like. So people just beware. One of the illustrations, or one of the people that talked about here, really wasn't even looking or didn't even really need. We're not in financial dyers, just was looking for a consolidation loan. And then the script led them to believe that they were in financial dyers and that they were there to help them out. And it was like,
the fact that the training is meant to deceive. I have worked with people on a couple different fronts, some on consolidation, some on bankruptcy, more of like a pro bono kind of scenario where I'm just helping people who are, and I actually do feel bad, but we don't charge fees for that. And sometimes when we do decide to help, but we've stepped away from that almost entirely. Most of these companies will negotiate with you personally. I mean, you can hire these companies to do fees, but honestly, mostly, I had one woman who came into our office. She started breaking down crying, and she hadn't explained to her husband that they had over $100,000 in credit card debt, and it was just really very complicated. And this is going back 10, 15 years ago. So it was complicated. I mean, they were living a life of bouncing, and he had no idea. They were family members of a very good client of mine, and I really did. I felt like I needed to help them, and we got the credit card companies on the phone, and we discussed that and the scenario of getting some versus none, and bankruptcy that they were eligible for, and those are different things that are different conversations. And sometimes settling credit card debt directly yourself can be a savings. And sometimes you can recover quicker, and sometimes you don't. And bankruptcy is just sometimes easier. So there's a lot of different moving parts here, and probably an attorney would be the best person, a bankruptcy attorney, to talk to. And they may know a legitimate credit restructuring company, and they might know the different people that can do this stuff that would be helpful. But I think you need to weigh in and know that whichever decision you do, it is going to affect a very long period of your life. The decision to do this stuff is more about a heart change about how you see money or how you utilize money. And Seth, you had an interesting phrase the other day I thought was about the relationship that you have with money. And I like the way you tag that. And I think, the relationship that you have with money, if that doesn't change, this will just be a temporary Band-Aid, no matter whether you bankrupt or try to consolidate.
I appreciate that, Ben. That was actually going back to a Dave Ramsey bit that we were talking about, where that is the thing that needs to happen. The whole point there is to change your relationship with your finances. And if that doesn't change, this is just going to be something that repeats over and over and over again. And I think that's part of what we're going to jump into later on when we're talking about helping our kids understand the relationship with finances. Where do we start, and what are some of the tools that we can use? But I've been waiting for this last article.
Can I add one more thing too? I was talking to somebody the other day. He's like, I don't know if I have enough money or this, that, the other thing. And I said, if you can define what you really want, then you'll know whether or not you can afford it. But until you don't, you'll never know what enough is. And I think that's the thing. We're taught never to know what enough is. We don't know what the next iPhone's going to bring or the next Android phone's going to be. And if it's $1,200 or $1,500, well, that's just part of the cost of life. It doesn't need to be. So that was it.
All right. Well...
I like this next article too, Seth. This is very good.
Yeah. You guys, sobriety is trending.
That's what I
hear. This is good.
That's what I hear.
This is great. It's a business that is catching on. I think it's a fantastic part of the health and wellness movement. Health and wellness has always been a thing. People have been, yogging since the 70s.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the greatest things I heard was that there has been a 5% reduction in alcohol consumption over the last, 15 or 16 years. Seeing the trends and how things are changing in this world. When we were in high school, like MAD, I think, was started, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Drinking was on a massive tear. It was rising rapidly. And you're just starting to see, I think, a little bit of the success of education that a lot of these programs are having about alcohol and being more responsible, even if that's all what it is. I mean, just drunk driving itself is a horrible scenario. But it was interesting, I thought, the companies that they actually targeted in this athletic brewery,
and
they're out of Stratford, Connecticut, and then there's this company, Kin. So the athletic brewery is trying to make beer-like substances like IPAs, and Kin is trying to be more to the liquor drinking realm. But they were just talking about how this stigma of not drinking is something that is kind of like, oh, you don't drink. And then all of a sudden you have to define whether or not you are an alcoholic or not. And it's interesting because, I haven't had I haven't had a drink in, 9, almost 10 years. And, for me, it's like, there wasn't alcoholism or anything like that. I have 4 kids, I have a family, and I made a life decision in conversation with my wife and I. We just chatted. She really didn't drink much at all in her life, and we just chatted about whether we wanted to show our children that you could live life without alcohol, that you could still enjoy life without alcohol. Because I think the question is does alcohol have to be part of every really great experience? And if that's the case, then what are we teaching our children? And that was something that we personally felt convicted on, and we made that decision. And there's a hashtag that they came up with, hashtag sober curious, I took out of this article.
It's funny. My cousin shared that with me the other day, sober, and I thought he came up with it himself. So guess what? You're outed. You stole that hashtag. But I love that. I love the idea, and I'm actually kind of surprised that Portland was not on the forefront of this for a couple reasons. One of these companies was in Brooklyn. Being from the West Coast and in Vancouver, just north of Portland, you always hear, oh, yeah, Brooklyn's the new Portland and all this. It's the hipster city on the East Coast, and they're first to the table on this, as far as I know. This is new. This is trendy. This is something that I hadn't seen over there. And usually Portland's known for being on the forefront of these things. So I'm trying to process that as to why that is.
Yeah, the names of these places, it's like all bar, no booze, and then listen bar. Like just think about the different scenes of how loud bars get because people are drinking. It's the listen bar. This is interesting, and it's been the stigma. And my wife and I have discovered that we end up spending more time with people who don't traditionally drink because there's no conversation about it. It's not like people feel weird one way or another, but there's a stigma about having not drinking in this world, and that there's an issue or a problem, or why wouldn't you? And that pressure is totally unreasonable in our culture, and I don't know why. Honestly, it exists because I have a great time with people. But I have reasons why I believe it exists, but it doesn't need to be. One guy was a biker that was biking cross country, and he's like, "Yeah, I gave up drinking because I'm an athlete and I can't drink." And I think Tom Brady, I don't think he really drinks much at all. Like he's
not during the season.
Yeah, he's just like because of just the anti-inflammatory nature of just being an athlete and taking care of his body.
I was waiting for the obligatory Tom Brady reference from Ben. So I appreciate nailing that one.
Yeah, the biker that you were talking about there, he was just talking about all the pros or the benefits to not drinking. And really, he felt like there was drinking was one of the things that was potentially, maybe not even, but just potentially getting between him and accomplishing his dreams. And I mean, that was enough. How many pros are there for just not drinking, and how many cons are there to drinking? It kind of outweighs it.
What morning did you wake up and think to yourself, boy, I really regret being sober last night? I mean, how many times has that happened? So, that's kind of the bottom line, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I think there's some cases there that maybe. Hey, that's going to do it for us in Money in the News. You're listening to Money on Tap. We're going to be right back, and we're going to be talking about educating or having conversations, and what are some of the tools that you can start to use with your kids around finance. And it's going to get simple, and there's going to be activities, and it's going to be fun, and you're listening to Money on Tap, and we're going to be right back.
Hi, my name is Ben Brayshaw, one of the co-hosts of Money on Tap. If you have questions when it comes to your retirement and are looking for a personalized solution, contact us at Brayshaw Financial Group. In today's volatile stock market, we can help you plan to find your successful retirement solution. Am I saving enough? Am I saving into the right places? Do my investments match my appetite for risk? Do I have a tax strategy that is going to help me keep more of what I earn? How can I maximize my Social Security income? If you are like most people, you are getting closer and closer to your retirement and may be wondering if you're taking the right steps. If you're in retirement, you may be wondering, am I maximizing my income while preserving my estate and caring for my family? We talk about all things financial in what we call three-dimensional investing, putting a plan around your financial future. If you feel that now is the time to start getting the answers to some of these questions for your own situation, give us a call at Brayshaw Financial Group at 855-226-8551. Headquartered in Bedford, New Hampshire, we have offices throughout New England
and across the country. We would love the opportunity to show you how we can help. There's absolutely no cost or obligation just to meet with us, and we welcome you to our office. Call us at 855-226-8551.
Now back to Money on Tap with Ben and Seth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters. Money on Tap is where we bring out the professional's experience and some fun in what we call three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. That's what we're doing here on this podcast or on this radio show, however you're grabbing us today. We want to thank the podcast listeners for a second. And if you are listening to us on a podcast, one thing that you could do to help us out at Money on Tap is download or comment or subscribe to the podcast. That helps us out to bring this information to more people. It's simple, it's easy, and we appreciate that that's what you're doing out there and supporting us at Money on Tap. You can reach us, 855-226-8551. Also, info@yourmoneyontap.com. And it's a lot of fun for us to hear from you, our listeners, and the questions that you have or some of the ideas that you would like us to cover. Without further ado, I don't know that I've ever said that in a
That was
segue.
a little strange.
Would you like to teach your kids about finance? We're
Yes.
going to have 5 simple activities that we're going to talk about. But besides the 5 simple activities that we've kind of got outlined here, we're going to talk to you about our experience in this area because it is a part of what we do at Brayshaw Financial Group. And it's a passion of ours to help educate and bring people into the know on what can they do to help grow their personal finance knowledge.
What spurred this conversation was the article that we saw by Liz Frazier. And I'm actually interested. She's got some interesting ideas inside here and so forth, and I think they're good. But I was kind of interested because I think between all of us, we started chatting about this article, and I think which drove the conversation of like, we should do a show on this, was kind of the roundtable concept of, things that we're all doing with our kids and things that I've shared with various clients.
Yeah, first of all, I did want to give a little recognition here. There's the book Beyond Piggy Banks and Lemonade Stands, How to Teach Your Kids About Finance. So it's a resource, and there are several other resources besides our experiences here. But first, getting us kicked off here is grocery store guessing game. The simple part of it is you just go to the grocery store the next time that you're at your grocery store and you're in the line with the cashier. You just take turn guessing the total costs of your food. A little bit like Price is Right.
When I see the credit card bill come through for the groceries at our house, I'm like, someone needs to be playing this game. It is out of control.
You're going to start going, or you're going to stop going?
This is grass-fed in the eastern region of the Philippines, brought in over a non-diesel, tanker.
Also called a donkey.
I'm like, who cares?
It's better.
I would be
for
terrible at this. Go ahead, Eric.
It's better for you, of course. That's what they say. It's better for you that way.
I would be terrible at this game, I think, because every time I go to Costco, I'm like, I got 20 items in the basket. I don't know. I'm probably somewhere around $100, $150. $500, folks. You just don't get out of Costco without dropping $500. That's just what it is now.
Family Feud X. Wrong on the board. I love this idea. Honestly, it's something that's fun. And then what I was thinking of my 3 boys and what each one would, if I took them separately, how would each one handle it? And I know that one would try to just guess because there's extra work in trying to calculate and keep track with looking at the prices. And then another would probably try to break out a calculator. That defeats the purpose. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I like it. I'm gonna take it. I'm utilizing it this week.
I like the second one, which is let them pay. I think, forget the calculator. Bring the calculator as long as you bring your wallet, kid.
I think you may have misread what that meant.
I know, but I like the title. Of it.
Yeah, I love that. That's good.
Number 2 is giving some responsibility to your kids by like when they go shopping and to either give them cash to, actually pay the bill for you using, getting actual return of dollars. One of the things I thought was, interesting was just the idea of like giving them a credit card and having them manage it, because that's what we do in our society now where we don't have cash. But one of the old styles of that would be, people had the envelope conversation where they got their paycheck, they cash their paycheck, and they put X dollars into the envelope for food per week, X dollars for the mortgage, and and they would just break it out and say, these are my core expenses. So, and what I do each month, I actually do this right in my checkbook. I literally write in the mortgage, the car payments, and then, I get compensated first, and then everything extra starts going towards that. So
yeah, that makes sense. And actually, one of the things that I did on this one was I got each of my kids a debit card that I signed on as well. So they all have one in their own name. Whenever they want to make a purchase or they ask me if they can buy something or if I should buy it for them, I tell them to grab their debit card. But we've also figured it out where they're all linked together. So if, let's say, one of your kids is saying, well, I'll buy this and you can owe me $5 or whatever. So I show them how to transfer the money and how that works behind the scenes, and they press the buttons on the app and do it all. So it's been pretty neat. Now they're like questioning when I purchase something, which is kind of backfiring. That's not how it's supposed to be. And they'll be like, wait, Dad, shouldn't we think about that? But you're doing something right when that's going on. So it's a good way to do it.
We had some family that were in Europe this summer. Augusta, our 7-year-old, was talking about places that she wants to go. And I think she was talking about, I want to go to India or something. And I'm like, that's really great. And then she asked, so can we go? I'm like, well, that's not something we put into our budget this year, honey. Well, I'll pay. I was like, oh, that's so nice. And I just kind of let it sit there. And she's like, well, how much is that, Dad? It's like, yeah, it's probably around $10,000. She just stops. I think we'll stay home this weekend.
Just this weekend. Yeah. Maybe next.
And Spencer, I have a great experience. I love that failure is like really just the path of progress and how we learn so much. Years ago, but Spencer, we were in the grocery store and he really wanted some toy and he had his money. And I was looking at it and I was like, that's garbage. And I tried to explain to him, like, I don't think that's really what you want to buy or what you want to spend your money on. And he was like, no, I do, Dad, I do. And so he went ahead and bought it, and we get that thing home, and he's asking me, can we take this back? I want to return. Can I return this toy? I'm like, no, absolutely not. So, he got the experience, though, of buying something. I didn't take that away from him, I guess is the point, is like, let them have the experience of buying something and getting it home and being like, this thing is not that great. Now I'm stuck with it.
Yeah.
That is a very good lesson.
Yeah. Yeah, the pain. There has to be some kind of a failure or pain in there, I think, is part of what the experience needs to be, because I think we've all had buyer's remorse where we get into that. I don't know, the car lots may be the place where more people experience that than others, but we've all bought a big ticket item and it's like, oh, we get that sinking feeling in the pit of our stomach, like, I spent how much on a Honda?
Yeah, exactly. I think, and there's 2 of these 5 that are similar. One of them is to have the idea of pretending with your kids that they have a job and then giving them a job, which is, those go hand in hand. And I think that has to do with the age level that you're dealing with. It brings me back to one of the experiences that I had where my son was asking me if he could get a video game. And I said, sure, yeah, I'll cover it for you. But I want you to sign this contract and pay me back. And so, he thought it was a little outlandish, but we just drew some terms on a piece of paper.
How much interest was in there?
28%.
Yeah, it wasn't anything egregious.
It was within the law.
It was like 60%. It was not
a day.
No, I think I did like 2%, but I forget what it was, but it was something easily, calculated. And then I showed him, hey, this is what you get for your chores and your allowance, and here's how long that's going to take to pay back. Would you like me to go forward with this? And gave him the decision. And
that's more disclosure than you got from the previous article.
I know, exactly. Yeah, it's like, got a great plan for you. Look, you can get this toy and then only pay me back $3 a week. But Yeah, maybe you guys have a couple examples of the lemonade stand. We haven't actually done that yet. Just my oldest is helping an elderly lady in the neighborhood with yard work, but there's no official LLC or anything yet. We're working on that next.
LLC. We haven't drawn up the corporate docs, and we're going to sit with the attorney next week. Well, I think the pretend play, kind of having a job. I think jobs play even a more crucial role than we give credit to, than just the money. Like, because kids get bored and they don't feel like they have responsibility or purpose. I think jobs tremendously drive purpose with our kids, because I believe God gave us that kind of innate desire to be productive, to want to have value in life. And I think, video games and all of that stuff, I mean, all these different things that our kids do is one type of experience in life, but finding real purpose is something that our hearts long for. And I think that having a job and then showing our children how to utilize that job as a tool and then teach them the right concepts around money really drives it. So I have all my kids, we have them paint. I've had people make fun of me. Like, oh, your kids paint. Like, I'm sure it's horrible. It's like, I think it's great. I think it's art for us in my mind. I don't care if it's not perfect, in our house. And we can always repaint or fix it or make it a little better. But the truth is that paying them for that time and that effort is something that, I'm happy to do. And we pay them really well, way better than minimum wage. So, that's something that I think we need to look for as parents is find roles for our kids to have in our house. Real value roles.
Could you share with me what the Brayshaw minimum wage is? Because I might stick around and just do a couple odd jobs.
Well, depending on the job, I pay most of the time I pay $13 an hour.
Okay. All right.
I have paid 10, but we moved it up.
Wow. Inflation in the Brayshaw house.
It's a 30% inflation over a 2-year period.
Cost of living there in New Hampshire.
No, actually, what happened was I gave my son the job to paint our railings a number of years ago around our deck, and he did a great job. I said, listen, if you do a good job, you don't get any paint on the wood and this, that, and the other thing, you take real care, I'll give you a bonus.
Craftsman bonus.
Some incentive there.
Yeah, for quality. He did a great job. My wife and I were so super impressed. I could not believe the amount of effort and detail. And I was like, I can't remember what it was. I mean, I think it was like $200 or something that I gave him as a bonus.
Holy.
Yeah.
So I'm not kidding. I'll, let me know what you have to do around
But,
here.
you think about the railings, right? The railings are it's a painstaking
the worst
job.
part.
So I went from paying like $10 an hour to, I don't know, $13 an hour. And then, so I just said, okay, that's your new wage. So, but that was I think giving our kids reasons for value and in the bonus concept really taught him to have care about what he was doing too. So.
I feel like I'm going to talk for the next 5 minutes on some of these experiences. Last night, actually, Spencer came home and he's playing football this year. And of course, the fundraiser is what he wants to talk about. And the experience I have with that, there's a couple of things. Like, of course, they're going to come to the bank at Dad and they're going to be like, Dad, will you buy the card that gets you the discounts at all these places that you never go and shop and you're never going to use? And that's the low-hanging fruit. But I want them to have a different experience now. I want him to get out there and set a goal and start to accomplish something. What he's going to say to the person at the door to engage them around that whole transaction and get a little better at it. So, it's different. It's changed now because my 7-year-old is going outside and trying to sell whatever off the sidewalk. She's an entrepreneur and she's making it happen, but and not have, really not having a whole lot of people come through her stand or whatever. But these are different levels that they're working around. So instead of me just handing over I'll buy 2, I'm giving them some incentives. I'm saying, okay, for every 10 that you go out there and sell, I'll buy 1. And ultimately, I want to buy a couple of them because, I'll, I don't know, give them away at the chamber or something like that for giveaway prizes. But I want him to have some goals and some marks out there that he's going to set. We're going to take a break here at Money on Tap. We're going to come back with more ways that you can help get engaged around finances and teach your young kids, primarily young kids is what we're talking about here, around finance. You're listening to Money on Tap. We'll be right back. Hi, my name is Seth Krussman, partner with Brayshaw Financial Group and one of the co-hosts of Money on Tap. One of the biggest concerns and largest expenses people face today is taxes. Without thoughtful planning, taxes can destroy future retirement dollars, eliminating the possibility of a timely retirement or dreams of what you want retirement to look like. If you're like most people, you're getting closer and closer to retirement, and you may be wondering if you're taking the right steps. Will my income be enough? Will rising taxes force me to give up my dreams? How does inflation factor into all of this? These are real concerns, and you're not alone. Putting a plan around your financial future is what we do. If you have questions when it comes to your financial security, and if you're looking for a personalized solution, contact us at Brayshaw Financial Group, 855-226-8551. It's time for you to start getting answers to your questions. Headquartered in Bedford, New Hampshire, Brayshaw Financial has offices across the country. We'd love the opportunity to show you how we can help. There's absolutely no cost or obligation to meet with us. Call us at 855-226-8551. 855-226-8551.
Now back to Money on Tap with Ben and Seth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. Quick second, want to thank the podcast listeners for the downloads, the likes, the comments, and the subscriptions. All those things are activities that in podcast world helps us get this message out to more people. So we appreciate that. Thank you for helping us, and thank you for helping out those that are new to podcasting and just having a first or a second listen to us. We're talking today about how you can teach your kids, your young kids, about finance. And we're going through basically 5 simple activities to just kick this off. We're sharing some of our personal experiences with younger and older of our own children, of how we've been engaging around finance and helping them to learn more about what we use all the time, all of us. Nobody's going to get around this in this, at least not in this society, of how to interact with and have a relationship with money, but we want it to be a positive one. We want them to have experiences and learn through the failures to be able to manage finance. And what we've talked about so far is a grocery store guessing game. That's basically, the item in the basket, pull it out, everybody gets a crack at it and can guess what the cost of that might be. Kind of fun and understanding that relationship of, the cost of goods and services. We let them play was number 2. And they can kind of pretend to be, a doctor or whatever they might want to have, their bookstore or their lemonade stand. And then pretend play at having a job. This was we didn't really get into a whole lot of these experiences. We kind of just talked and shared more about our experiences with some of our kids and how we've helped them learn how to earn a buck. But there's some great methods here, and I think play is something that we need to understand, especially with younger kids. Play is how they learn. It's all about play. And the more that they can play, the more that's going to be something that they get the relationship around. And I love the lemonade stand. I've seen kids throw out their goods and services on the corner there and try to make a buck, and that's a great experience.
I had just had a recent friend in the neighborhood post that their son was out and for everybody to come by, and I was like, yeah, it's a successful end of the day and people are going to stop by, and I actually went and stopped by to support it because I love that idea. But part of me thought, hey, what if you let them experience what naturally was going to come from just having that stand out there and not stepping in for that extra boost? You know what I mean? And I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it, but part of me was just like, let it naturally happen. I feel like that experience might have been a little more beneficial, but that's my judgmental side.
Well, yeah, no, I think that's a good point, right? Does the lemonade stand teach you more from it being successful or it failing?
Seriously. Or what are your thoughts on why that didn't go well? Where would you put it? What would make it better?
Right. I think the entrepreneurial spirit is something that can be taught on some level, but it's also something that has to do with the item that you're selling, right? And then it also has to do with kind of some natural abilities. I remember my father started a printing company, and it's become something of substance at this point, and he's no longer with us, but one of my brothers runs that. And, there's just different, I've looked at all my siblings, and there's kind of an entrepreneurial spirit about all of them. And I think we got that from our dad. I think we learned that, but I think there's also some intrinsic understanding of, that's maybe part of someone's makeup, right? So not everyone's going to want to do a lemonade stand. And as I'm kind of listening to this, I know we haven't chatted about this, but the real background conversation, I think, Seth, that and Eric, what we're having here is we need to launch our children, right? We're all prepping to figure out how to launch them into adulthood, how to be mature about finances and money. And, I'm thinking about some of the pieces of why we do this, because these are some very front end pieces of launching, but taking real ownership and real responsibility and continuing to graduate, that more into their lap as they move forward is something that, I have a daughter that's going to college this year, so I haven't experienced all the different levels of this, but I will tell you that one thing that we have done with her and our current son, who's turning 16 this year, is that we made them both pay for their own driver's ed.
Well, do you have any non-current sons? Because the current son that's turning 16 right now.
I might move him out. So currently he is still a son.
Yeah, status to be adjusted later.
Could be. I like the question mark to be
You're
there
not.
for him. It keeps him in
hang
line.
it out there.
Yeah.
Life in the Brayshaw household may be what
horrible.
you know it to be today, or may not.
Yeah. But we've made them both pay for their driver's ed. He wanted to be a lifeguard. There was a lifeguard opportunity. We made him pay for his lifeguarding class and course, which is very expensive. And he's like, Dad, I'm halfway through the summer and I think I'm barely breaking even with the course is super expensive. And, but he's really taken that seriously, which is good. But just kind of walking our kids through that level of responsibility and continuing to push them to understand that, at some point in time, we're not going to be here to care for this. Like you need to, like with our daughter, like dealing with the payments of college and so forth. Like we told our kids, we sent them to a private Christian school and we said, hey, listen, we were going to contribute the same amount we did for that. And we would match any of the independent scholarships you got, not scholarships from the school themselves. My wife and I had to pay for college ourselves and we didn't have anyone helping us, but we also didn't want to burden our children with the entire cost of college, but we didn't want them to think that this was a free ride just to go hang out and have fun either.
Yeah, seriously.
So anyways, she, when we looked at the different colleges and so forth, she got one scholarship from Eric's alma mater, which was unbelievable, and my alma mater gave her virtually nothing. I don't know if that's the quality of the student. I have no idea how the relationship there is, but I just literally wrote it down on paper. I said, hey, listen, this is how much you're going to have at the end of, 4 years here, and this is how much you're going to have at the end of 4 years here that you're going to owe after we're involved and so forth. And she said, Dad, I really like this other option, even though it was my alma mater. I was like, well, I like that other option as well for you. And she since has made that decision to go there and creating some obligation. If I was paying for the whole freight, she would have been like, well, Dad, I kind of like this school or that school better or something like that. And that does play into it. But, making wise financial decisions has to be as much yes as it is, no. Like, like I can't afford that or I can't do that. Like when we walk into Best Buy or some, TV store, I say this to people all the time, you see a 50, 60, 70-inch TV and you say, oh, man, I really need that. But do you really need it? And how is a 30-inch TV going to really impact your ability to watch TV, if that's really what you got to do? And do you really even need it? And so evaluating what real needs and wants are and being able to teach our children that, hey, sometimes we need to know the difference between want and need and what we can afford and what we can't.
So budgeting with prepaid credit cards or prepaid cards, this is a part of what we're doing today. I mean, Eric, you mentioned it. Working around that. It's something that hasn't really made its way into the Krussman household yet. We're still working around a lot of mostly cash, which I don't keep cash on me most of the time. And so I'm usually having to make a run to the store to pay the kids because this is what we have done is given them jobs. And that was number 5 here. Give them a job. And you've talked about this, and I thought it was hilarious because just last night, Julian, who's 3 years old, was about to have a meltdown because Augusta is setting the table, which is her job, and he didn't have a job. And the only thing that was left was the sharp steak knives. And Augusta was, taking those away, and he's about to lose it because he doesn't have anything to do. And I'm trying to get him to just do the napkins. Anyways, I gave him anybody wondering, I gave him the steak knives, and I'm like, have at it, buddy.
Let's just see what happens.
We're going to learn through failure.
Wow, what a responsibility. He probably felt very highly valued.
Yeah. But one of the ways that we've worked on,
let's give him a dustbuster next time.
We have tried many different methods. Okay, so that's, I think, part of being a parent is just we try to. We are in this whole thing of like trying to figure out what's going to work. We've got the chore chart and all these kind of, everybody's got that knows what they know what their responsibilities are for the week. With the older one, and we try this with the middle one as well. The deal with the chores is you do the chores. You're going to do the chores regardless. If you do them without me having to ask you, you're going to get paid. Because I'm so tired of having to hound them to do what they need to do. And then they're turning around with their hand out. And I'm like, that doesn't really feel right to me.
That will be implemented tomorrow.
I'm big into bonuses. Or some sort of something for quality. I think if you keep pushing that, whether it's like, hey, listen, if you don't complain and you just do it, great. I mean, sometimes kids are distracted and like, hey, listen, take out the trash. If I always tell kids, first time obedience. If I ask you one time and you do it, hey, great, you've completed your chore. If I ask you a second time, you're no longer doing your chores. Like, I mean, because we all notice, like, hey, don't forget to wash the car, or something. I mean, there's things I forget, but I don't forget them more than once usually. And then otherwise I'm just being irresponsible. So I do give my kids one opportunity to respond on a request that maybe they're not actually having.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think having a great attitude, having some kind of a reward system, a bonus. I mean, that's a real life deal. And I think that's what we're trying to build here is life skills, and that there's monies in return for work. Actually had a client call yesterday and just having a conversation, and of course the conversation about fees comes up. Like, what are your fees? And my response is, we don't charge anything here. We're just all pro bono. We're here to help. And she just died laughing, And we had a great conversation around fees. And it's understandable. Everybody has some kind of, I do work. There's something coming back the other direction. And that's the relationship there, I think, is where we're coming back with here, is what is the relationship around the finances? I want it to be a healthy one. I want them to work and have a good attitude about it. I don't want it to be this, oh man, dad's hounding me and telling me I have to do my work all the time. It's going to happen. There's no way around it. Let's just go ahead and do it, and let's have a great attitude. And when we do that, we have other stuff that's awesome that happens as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think just to reiterate, one of those items on the job aspect is, we talked about it before, but that letting them fail might actually be more beneficial than ensuring that they win, because that's just not reality. The reality is you're not going to always win.
Well, I think there's two sides of that, right? The win is that dad buys a cup of lemonade, but maybe the rest of the neighborhood doesn't. They have to have little successes, and you need to kind of culture that a little bit. And I think they need to understand real failure. Like, hey, listen, if you don't show up to work on time, you're going to lose your job. Like, I mean, those real scenarios are issues,
Well, I know some adults that haven't quite figured that one out yet too. I'm shocked, but maybe their parents weren't listening to Money on Tap and having these conversations at their table. You get an opportunity to do that today. Hopefully, this has been good for you. We've had a lot of fun talking about all sorts of stuff. We've been talking about money in the news, minimum wage, all the offers out there to clear out your debt being garbage. Maybe not all of them, but anyways, there's some buyer beware stuff out there. I've enjoyed our conversation around teaching your kids around finance. And what's great for us is we're passionate about it. If you're a listener today that is having questions around how to take a look at college and what kind of ways to, back into financing college and what we've experienced or we've seen, or we can give some examples and share some of our experience of what others have done. But getting to this point and launching our kids into that next step and having them prepared and understanding and having a healthy relationship around their finance, that's what this conversation has been about today. You've been listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Thanks a lot, you guys.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of this radio station and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. No strategy, product, material, or tool mentioned can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information, products, materials, or tools mentioned should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. This show may be subsidized in whole or in part by a product sponsor or issuer. Securities and advisory services offered through SagePoint Financial Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC, and a registered investment advisor. All other services offered through Brayshaw Financial Group LLC are independent of SagePoint Financial. SagePoint Financial and Brayshaw Financial Group do not provide tax or legal advice. Main office is located at 116 South River Road, Bedford, New Hampshire, 03110, and can be reached at toll-free 855-226-8551.